Hello everyone, this is Prem Sodhani coming up with the next round of our current affairs classes, and this is the third class of current affairs. In this class we are going to discuss some of the important topics which were recently in news. The first topic which we will cover, that is the suspension of MLAs case which happened in Maharashtra. Then we'll also talk about the marital rape and how we are going to criminalize this act of marital rape in near future. Then we'll discuss about this important key policy of government, that is design linked incentives, which is designed for the semiconductor industry. Then we'll also discuss Kathak Dance. This was in news because of some of the eminent personalities associated with this dance. That is Birju Maharaj was recently expired or died. Right. Then we'll discuss about this SAMARTH scheme, and Tonga volcano was in news recently. Along with that, we'll see the mapping wherever these sites of volcanism are very much active. Also, we will discuss what is the phenomena of this volcanism, as we will try to link this recent phenomena with your GS and static subject as well. Then we'll also discuss recently the Davos meeting was held, and this was attended by our Prime Minister virtually, and whatever the key terms were there, we are going to discuss that thing also. After that, these are the prelims specific topics where we'll see this is PASSEX exercise, not past exercise, sorry. And then we'll discuss this is PASSEX, right? Then we'll discuss about Oxfam's report, that is Inequality Kills, and this is going to be important in order to write some of the good answers in your mains answer writing. And also we'll see this WESO report, that is World Employment and Social Outlook, that is released by International Labour Organization, right? Then Eastern Swamp Deer was recently in news because their population was declining. And lastly, we'll discuss about the National Commission for Safai Karamcharis. Okay, so let's get started with the topics. The first topic that we'll discuss, that is important topic of your political polity, that is the suspension of 12 MLAs by Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. Right. The first thing is, what is news? The news is these were the 12 MLAs which were on the charges of interruption of the normal activities or business of the houses were suspended by Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. Then why it is in news? Because those suspended MLAs have some, they have challenged the decision of this house of Maharashtra Legislature on certain provisions. So we are going to discuss that provisions also. The first is what is news. We have seen that is the news. The second is what is the stand of, especially if we talk about the stand of these 12 MLAs which were suspended. What is the stand? Then we'll discuss about government's stand. Right, what Maharashtra government says and what were the provisions used for the suspension of these MLAs. Then we'll see why these provisions are relevant, or why we can say this is not the natural principle justice were violated, and this is far beyond the power of suspension of Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. Why we are saying that thing, we'll also discuss that is issues, why this is in news. And finally we'll see what should be the way forward, right? And what should be the Supreme Court's stand, which we'll also discuss in that detail, right? The first thing is, let me tell you why these MLAs have challenged this decision. The first thing that they said, that they have not given the chance to be heard, right? So before suspending anyone or before taking into taking any action on these MLAs, they should have been heard of, right? So this is the first thing that they have charged, that is this is against the principle of natural justice, where they not even heard, right? Not even heard before suspending them, right? So natural principle justice says, the key line of this natural principle justice says कि justice should not be done only. This is not enough. That should be seen also that justice has been done. Okay, so it should not be done only. It should also be seen that it is done. Okay, so in this natural justice principle, they were not given the chance of being heard. Right. The second is they said this is violation of laid procedures. So the charges are because they were suspended for a period of 1 year, and they are now saying that this is beyond the power of this legislature or the speaker, we can say, because the laid procedure says maximum you can suspend a member for a period of 6 months, right? Sorry, for a session, not okay, for a session. Okay, and the third charge is here, that is Rule 53 of Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. Says that suspension by a speaker cannot be put to the vote, but that was also put to the vote, and finally the decision was taken, right? So these are the charges which these 12 MLAs have gone through the Supreme Court with these charges. Now we'll see what is the stand of the government. The first thing is, government says we have not only used Rule 53, right? So Rule 53 talks about that speaker can suspend any person who is breaching the normal conduct of the what should be the expected behavior of any MLA, and if he is not following or he is willfully interrupting the activities of the house, business of the house, then it is the power of speaker, right? He can say ki now you will have to be absent for a next couple of sitting, or maximum period of one session also be there. So this is the first thing, means for a day or for maximum a session can also be this member be suspended. This is one thing. The second thing that Maharashtra government says that it has also used Article 194, and it talks about that power is all vested in the house, that we can suspend anyone, and this is mentioned in Article 194 according to the Maharashtra government, right? So we have not only used this Rule 53 which talks about maximum suspension could be for a session, we also have used that 194, means the power of suspending any member is vested with the house. Okay, so question of voting is violated. And the third thing that Maharashtra government says that it is Article 212, which talks about that court should not inquire the matters of this house. Okay, means a court cannot intervene into the matters of legislative assembly or the legislative processes. This is mentioned in Article 212, means they are saying that Supreme Court is not such authority to intervene in this matter. Okay, but now the question is here, the issue, what is the issue, why this is in news? Because of some procedures. If we will talk about the suspension, this has been done for a period of 1 year. But if we go by various articles, various procedures which are mentioned in our constitutions and the rules of the Lok Sabha and the rules of the Rajya Sabha, so you will notice that maximum time period could be 6 months only, right? So if we talk about the first thing, that is Article 194, right? If you can remember, that is perfectly fine. If not, also that is not necessary always. Remember just some of the important articles, not each and every article. So this Article 190 Section 4 says that if a member remains absent for a period of 60 days without the permission of a speaker or chairman of the house, then his seat stands vacant. Okay, so the seat would be declared as a vacant if a member is absent for a period of consecutive 60 days without the permission of the house speaker or chairman, right? This is one thing. The second aspect that you can see here, that is Section 151A of Representation of People Act 1951. It says if by-elections are to be held, if a seat is vacant and there are by-election are supposed to be held, they should be held within a period of 6 months. Okay, maximum 6 months. Okay, the next thing, which if we talk about the rules of Lok Sabha, and they come under these rules are 373, 374 and 374A. Okay, they say the maximum that suspension could last till a period of one session. Okay, maximum for a session only. Same way, the rules of Rajya Sabha, they are mentioned in for example 255 and 256. They also talks about that suspension could be maximum for a period of one session. Now, if you can conclude out of these four things that we have discussed, a constituency can remain vacant for maximum 6 months according to the section 151A, and if it is vacant for a period of 60 days, it becomes vacant according to the article 194, right, section 4. And according to the rules of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, it is clearly, we can conclude that the suspension could be maximum for a session, right? And if it goes beyond the 6 months, that is nothing but the punishment is not here for the MLAs, means they are not suspended, but it is the constituency which is now being penalized, because constituency cannot remain vacant for a period of more than 6 months, right? We can conclude this from here. Okay, so if you are suspending any MLA for a period of 1 year, it means you are suspending the constituency itself. You are punishing that constituency itself, means now that constituency has no representation in the house. Okay, and this is something where Supreme Court had concluded that it is against the principle of basic structure. Means you cannot go beyond these things, okay, these articles, these criterias, where the maximum punishment is for a session or for a period of 6 months, but you have suspended them for a period of 1 year. So it goes against the basic structural doctrine of basic structure as per the Supreme Court, right? So what we can say here is, so what should be the way forward, or what we can say, what is erroneous here, what was the reasoning of Supreme Court? It was completely justified. And now the question is whether Supreme Court can intervene into the matters of this legislative assembly, yes or not. The answer lies in one of the famous judgment of Supreme Court, where you might have heard this Kyoto-Holohan case, right? In this Kyoto-Holohan case, Supreme Court clearly mentioned that if a speaker is working in his judicial capacity and not in legislative capacity, remember, it was for the case was against anti-defection power of suspension power of speaker, right? Of a speaker. So in this case, the decision of a speaker will be final one, but if it is not appropriate, or if we can say that is not arbitrary in nature, so Supreme Court can intervene into the matter, because here speaker was working under his judicial capacities. He is discharging his judicial powers and not legislative powers. And whenever the question of judicial powers comes in, the Supreme Court can automatically intervene into these matters. Okay, because if the justice is being denied, and this is the Supreme Court which is the which is supposed to intervene in these matters where justice is not done, right? So this is the case where we can say yes, Supreme Court can intervene, and with various judgments we have also seen that Supreme Court has effectively declared these type of the constitutional errors, or we can say these type of the decisions arbitrary, null and void, right? Many a times we have seen that thing. So this was the case of MLA suspension. I hope the things would be clear in your mind right now. Okay, so Supreme Court can intervene, that is for sure, because that goes against the principle of natural justice, that goes against the principle of doctrine of basic structure as well, right? So this is the first case that we have discussed. The second thing is, the important issue is of marital rape, right? If we talk about the marital rape cases in India, so what is the case? The case is, if we talk about marital rape. So there is one section, that is section 375 of IPC, Indian Penal Code, that says if husband is indulged in forced sex activities or a kind of marital rape, then he is exempted from the definition of rape, or he will be exempted from the this charges of rape if his wife is older than 15 years, right? He will not be charged under the cases of rape. That is nothing but, we can say, the legal immunity has been provided to the husband. Legal immunity has been provided to the husband, and that is the case where we are now seeing, this petition has been filed in the court that this act of this legal immunity should not be there, because marital rape is something which should be criminalized, right? Marital rape is something which should be criminalized. This is the case which is now in the court. The thing is that you should know is how this illegal immunity has been provided. This is first thing that you should notice is this is the colonial legacy which we are carrying forward. This is the first thing. The second thing is its roots of this legal immunity lies in the patriarchal society, where husband has all the rights over the body of women if she is more than 15-year-old. So this is the first thing that you should know. We are not the country where this act of marital rape is criminalized. Although we have carried forward this provision, this is the legacy which we are carrying with this colonial era. But UK itself has criminalized this act of marital rape, but we have still not declared that as a criminal act. This is one aspect. The second thing that you should notice is some of the data, if I want to quote here, that is, according to the UN Population Fund, 2/3 of married women in India are subject to the marital rape, right? Marital rape. So you can see the data. This is enormous number of women are there which are facing this type of marital rape, and this is according to the UN Population Fund. Right. The second thing that you should know is more than 104 plus countries have made these provisions of marital rape as a criminal act. But the countries like India, China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, right? In these countries, this act of marital rape is not criminalized one. Okay. Now we need to understand what is the issue. Why this has been challenged into the court. The issue is, the first thing is that is consent provision. Means the consent of women also matters. This is very important as far as sexual relations are concerned. So this consent is something which should be there, and if it is not there, that should be criminalized act. This should be criminal in nature, right? The second aspect that you need to understand is the state's control over women body. Means women have no right on their own body, right? Because if they are not giving consent, it means they have their own right over their body. But because this provision is being violated under this legal immunity provision of section 375, you can see here, this is the state which is exercising the powers on the women's body. They are not allowing women to have right on their own body. Okay. The third thing that you need to understand is how to remove this historical prejudice against women, right? So we are going to analyze this issue under these three things, right? So this is the issue. Now, what are the various issues which are associated, or what are the various challenges which are associated, and what are the things which women are facing nowadays? The first thing is that Article 14 that talks about equality before the law or equal protection of the law is being violated under this legal immunity, because women have no right for their consent. It doesn't matter, and husband has all the right husband has all the right over the women's body. It means it is discriminating in nature. Husband has the rights, but women or wife has no right. So this is one thing, that is the equal protection of the law or equality before the law, that is Article 14 is being violated. The second thing that you can see here, Article 19 is equally being violated because this talks about right to freedom of speech, right? Freedom of speech. So here freedom of speech has been violated of women. The third thing that you can also talk about, that is Article 21, that talks about the dignity of life, right? Privacy and all rights are here in under this Article 21. So all these are being violated. And the fourth that issue you can say here, the discrimination. This is nothing but discrimination. This discriminates married women against non-married women. How it is discriminating? Because in case of married women, if she is 15 plus year old and even if her consent is not there, the sex with her, if she is married, does not come under rape, under the definition of rape, right? But if it is non-married women and she is not giving her consent, so this will come under the definition of rape. So is this not very discriminatory, right? So this is discriminatory in nature also. This is, you should know. The next thing that we can talk about, that is, we already discussed, women's right on their own body. Their own body is being denied, right? So these are the issues that you should remember. This is the violation of Article 14, Article 19, Article 21. Again, it is discriminatory. It discriminates married women against non-married one. And lastly but not the least, that is women's right on their own body have also been violated or have been denied to the women, and that is the historical prejudice which still exists in our society. So this is the one angle when we talk about women's angle. The second angle when we talk about marital rape is the judicial angle or the judiciary. So if we talk about judicial angle, so the cases which are of this marital rape category are very less reported. This is one thing, and the reporting is also not very clear in case of NCRB data collection, right? So there is procedural or structural reform is required as far as NCRB data is concerned. So we do not have clear picture. This is one thing. The second thing is less reporting is there, and the third thing is because of the social stigma, because of the social pressure, these cases are often settled out of the court, right? So these are the issues when we talk about the judiciary angle. This is low reporting. The second is NCRB, National Crime Record data, is structural reforms are, structural errors are there. Means no clear provision is there how they are reporting marital rape and all, and most of the cases are settled out of court. This is again an issue. So if we talk about some of the important recommendations or some of the important committee on this one, so you can cite here, that is again Justice Verma committee was there. This committee talked about criminalization of marital rape, but it was again ignored by the government of the day. So they said that this marital rape should also be recognized, and this legal immunity which is being enjoyed by the male, that should be removed according to the Justice Verma recommendation as well. Okay, now if we talk about what is the stand of the government, means this case is also again in the court. Now what is the stand of the government? The first stand is government says if we are going to criminalize this act, this can hamper the institution of marriage. Means this institution of marriage is something which is sacrosanct according to the government, and now that is going to be disturbed if we are going to criminalize this act. The second thing that government says is this can go against the right to privacy. Means this is the private matter and government should not intervene into this matter. That is the stand of government. So what you should need to understand, that is government stand. The government stand says that if we are going to criminalize this act, this can goes against the provision of institution of marriage. The second thing that say is that can go against the right to privacy, means we cannot intervene in such matters. But the question here is, what should be the priority for the government? To protect the institution of the marriage or to protect the fundamental rights of the women? This is the question, right? So what is the question? The question is, what government is going to protect, the institution of marriage itself or the women's right, women's right, fundamental rights, right? So this is the debate versus, this is the debate between institution of marriage versus women right for the government. The second thing government says is there is chances of misuse, as this is evident especially under section 498A that talks about harassment by a husband and in-laws, right? So this is very much being misused by women. This is one angle. The second angle says that is according to the government that Domestic Violence Act 2005, this is also being misused by women, right? So there are chances that this marital rape criminalization can also be misused by women. This is again the angle that is government is saying. So that may become a tool of harassment as far as government's stand is concerned. But again the question is this the only way to protect the misuse of this provision? Means to provide them legal immunity, right? So legal immunity provision should not be the only solution to prevent the misuse of this provision. That you have to understand, that government has to understand, right? So again the question is, you need to have this much of clarity in your answer writing as well. So is legal immunity enjoyed by a husband under section 375 is the only way out to prevent the misuse? Again this is the question. And the third thing that if we talk about, this is the stand of the government, the last but not the least thing is, what should be the way forward then, right? So government is saying that we are following a very constructive approach. We have sought suggestions from the community, from various stakeholders, from various NGOs, and this is going to be the constructive approach where we are going to decide whether to criminalize this act of marital rape or not, right? So this is one thing that we have understood, that is the angle of the government. Now what should be the way forward? If we are going, suppose if we are going to criminalize, the act, then what should be the procedure? The procedure should be multi-dimensional one. Means they should not only be the judges, they are going to decide whether this falls under the category of marital rape or not. There should be a panel, proper panel. For example, we can say judges are there, medical team is there, family counselors are there, right? And then police personals are there in matters of deciding especially sexual history of the couple, number one. Number two, what is the physical condition, and along with that, what is the psychological condition of women or couple, right, over past couple of years. So you need to have clear databases where you should have judges, medical professionals, then family counselors and police personals, and they should as a whole decide the matter, that is whether this act was the marital rape type of the category act or that was a kind of something else, right? So that should be decided in this way. The second thing that is the most important one is the awareness campaigns about, especially about the consent, that consent is necessary, and this pre-assumption that wife is something which has surrendered her body for the husband in lieu of the act of marriage. This is not the way. Consent provision is very much necessary, and for that what we need is we need that awareness campaigns, especially as far as marital rape is concerned. Okay, so this was the case. I hope that would be clear in your mind now, right now. Okay, especially if we see about some of the proactive judgments of the Supreme Court of India, when we have seen that into the matter of section 377, that is homosexuality, this proactive judgment was there. Then we also have seen that triple talaq case, where Supreme Court has again said that these acts should not be arbitrary manifestation of something. So in this type of the judgments, in this type of the especially societal matters, this becomes very important. What is going to be the stand of the court, again what is going to be the stand of the government is yet to be seen. We'll discuss as we'll see the developments in near future. Okay, so now we come to the next provision, and that is the important aspect, that is the next thing that we are going to discuss is, that is again important, and it was all in news, that is designed linked incentive scheme for domestic semiconductor chips. Okay, so we are actually promoting our semiconductor industry because semiconductor is very important as far as electronics industry is considered, as far as solar industry is considered. So this semiconductor forms a basic tenet in case of many important and strategic industries, especially, right? So this becomes very important. The next thing is, we have recently seen the shortage of semiconductors, especially when this supply chain infrastructure was hurt, especially during the pandemic. We have seen that type of the shortage also. So what is our vision? Where our vision is to become self-reliant, especially in terms of this semiconductor industry, so that we should not have to rely in terms of semiconductor industry, because this forms a very strategic area as far as India's own interests are concerned. Okay, so this is one angle. Now if we understand, so what government is doing, we are promoting this semiconductor industry, and for that we have this scheme, that is design linked incentive schemes for the industries which are developing this semiconductor chips. They are deploying these semiconductor especially designs. Okay, so we are promoting them. So now we need to understand, that is in December, let me have some background. So in December 2021, we launched this scheme with a budget of 76,000 crore, right? For a period of 5 years, we are going to provide these companies in this sector incentives. They will be provided especially that infrastructural support as well. They will be provided both development and deployment type of the incentives. I am going to discuss what is this development and deployment type of the things, right? So you need to understand that was launched by Ministry of Information Technology and CDAC, right? CDAC was made implementing agency for whole scheme, right? That is CDAC. Now, if we talk about what type of the incentives are going to be provided, then you have to understand this scheme in three ways, right? Three-way approach is there. The CDAC stands for Center for Development of Advanced Computing, right? Advanced computers. This is the agency under METI, and it is the research and development wing. Also, you would have heard somewhere that is, it was the Param supercomputer, which was also made by the CDAC. So this is a three-way approach under this design linked incentive scheme. The first thing that you need to understand is that is, we are going to provide them infrastructural support. These industries would be provided infrastructural support, and for that CDAC will establish India Chip Center. India Chip Center, right? So in this India Chip Center, this CDAC is going to host state-of-art design infrastructure, and these companies would have access to this design infrastructure. For example, if we can say that is IP cores, right, and we can say EDAs. We can again say that is multi-project wafer fabrication, right? So this type of the state-of-art design infrastructure would be provided under this India Chip Center, and that would be established by CDAC. Now these companies would have access to this infrastructure. This is one thing. The second thing that you need to know is these companies would be provided incentives, that is production linked incentives. Means if some industry is indulged in the production of semiconductor chips or in the semiconductor related items, then it will be provided this production linked incentives, and they are very handsome as far as these incentives are concerned. For example, if the eligible expenditure is being applied, this company is applying that this much of the expenditure was there in order to produce this particular semiconductor chips and all, then this production linked incentives would be provided, and you can remember that one, that is up to 50% reimbursement can be provided, and that maximum cap is of 15 crore, right? So eligible expenditure, especially in semiconductor design, this can be applied. This application would be filed with METI, and this 50% of their cost would be reimbursed. That could be maximum of 15 crore. Means they would be provided this much of support by the government. Okay, so now they have this incentive, that is kind of credit support. Again, they have this in design infrastructure support. They can access this design infrastructure that was created by CDAC. And the third thing is, if they are manufacturing that design and that is being deployed by other companies, means their design were accepted as a deployment things by other companies, then they will also be provided the third thing, that is you need to understand, that is deployment linked incentives, that is DPI. Okay, so in this 6 to 4% of their net sales over a period of 5 years, right, and this would be maximum 30 crore for a company, right, would be provided to these companies. Now this is the approach, means at three-way with the, three angles you are supporting this semiconductor industry. The first angle is you are providing them infrastructural support. For that, CDAC is there. CDAC has created India Chip Center, where this state-of-art technology will be shared with these companies, that how you can also learn this type of the technology. You are going to produce this type of the semiconductor designs in your with this state-of-art technology. So this is one angle. The second angle is for the production. You are giving them the production linked incentives so that they can produce this type of the designs, semiconductor chips and IP technologies and all. And now if these companies are producing this tech, their design is being selected so that other companies are deploying their design, then these companies will again be provided deployment incentives also, right? I hope it would be clear. Infrastructure, design linked incentive, then deployment linked incentives as well. So this is the approach of this scheme that you should know, right? Now the most important aspect here is, if you have applied for these reimbursement or for these incentives, now government would there is a compulsory condition, I would say. This is compulsory condition that after the application for a minimum period of 3 years, if you have applied for this application for these incentives for a minimum period of 3 years, you have to retain its ownership as a domestic company. Means minimum 50% of the stakes should be by some Indian resident only. That should be the resident only, and that should be minimum of 50%. You have to remember, stakes in company should be of resident Indian. So you need to understand, because we want to become self-reliant. And what if we are providing those incentives and after 1 year I can say this company is now owned by some foreign national? So what is the what would be the aim of our self-reliance? That is going to be compromised. So this condition is there. After this application, minimum for a period of 3 years, you have to retain its domestic ownership. Means you cannot dilute your company beyond this 50% limit. This is one angle. And if we talk about the long-term vision, what is the long-term vision of the government? So obviously this is going to be the graded and preemptive approach of the government. Preemptive approach of the government to identify number one, what are the national priorities where this semiconductor industry can be used. So first we need to understand what are the national priorities. The second thing that we are going to have, what could be the strategies for indigenization in longer period of time, right? So that we can again identify what are the social aims. This technology, this semiconductor industry can be used for the fulfillment of the social aims along with the strategic aims, if we can say that thing also, right? So this was all about this scheme. You need to understand. Again, I'm going to take a very quick look of this one. What we have done, we have launched this in 2021. The budget was of 76,000 crore. For a period of 5 years, we are going to provide them hand-holding support, not only at infrastructure level, also we will provide them some of the incentives which are production linked. Then they are producing, and if that is deployed by other companies, then deployment related incentives would also be given to them. So we have discussed that thing. These were the three components. This was the approach, right? So what was the provision? Compulsory provision is for a minimum period of 3 years, you have to retain the domestic ownership. And what is the long-term vision of our government? That is how to achieve self-reliance in this industry. That is one area. The second area is how to identify the national interest where this industry related targets can be related. The second thing is how to achieve long-term vision, that is societal needs, that is strategical areas, and how this industry, semiconductor industry, can be deployed in achievement of this dreams of India, that is self-reliant and independent India. Okay, so this is all about this scheme. So you have to understand that is product as well as deployment related incentive scheme which is given to the semiconductor industry. Okay, now if we talked about the next topic, that is again important one, that is, let me discuss here, that is Kathak dance. Why this Kathak dance was in news? Because recently Pandit Birju Maharaj was died, right? And he was the eminent personality related to this Kathak dance. And other person who was also there, that is Pandit Munna Shukla. These two persons recently died. Pandit Birju Maharaj, right, of Lucknow Gharana. He was related to the Lucknow Gharana. So what is this Kathak dance? This becomes important to know, and how we are going to cover under this current affairs, how we are going to relate with this static part of your syllabus. The first thing that you need to understand is that is Kathak dance is something which needs, this is a kind of classical dance, that is first thing, classical dance, and it is prevalent in the North India, especially in Lucknow area, you can say. Earlier it was also the Awadh area. So this is a classical dance. The classical dances are the dances which are performed with strict rules, right? And the second thing is there are some technicalities as well. As well, right? So there are total 8 classical dance. Somewhere I would say there are 9 classical dances as well, because Chow is something which is in between of this 8 and 9. I'll tell you that thing also. So classical dances, and if we talk about the origin of these classical dances, so here you can say that was Natya Shastra written by Bharat Muni. That was the ancient scripture which talks about this type of the dances. You can trace this type of the dances here. The second book I would say here, that is Abhinay Shastra, that is Abhinay Darpan, sorry, that was written by Nandi Keshwara, right? And the third thing that you can also say, that is Sangeet Ratnakar of Sarangdev. So these 3 important books are there where you can actually see how this origination of dances took place in India. This classical dances, again you have to remember, there are certain strict rules and technicalities associated with this classical dance formats. There are basically 3 components which makes a dance a specific dance. The first aspect is, that is Natya. Natya means Abhinay, that is drama. The second component is Nritya, that is nothing but dance, right? So this is acting, that is drama. This is Nritya, that is dance. And the third aspect is, that is Nrita, right? Nritya is basically more of expression, right? This is intricate dancing, that is intricate dance movement, okay? So you need to understand these 3 are the basic aspects of any dance, that is Natya, Nritya and Nrita. Again, if we talk about the components of any dance, you need to understand once again, that is 2 basic components are there, that is Tandava and Lasya. These are the 2 aspects. Tandava stands for movement and rhythms. And this is grace or ras, or we can say bhav, right? So these 2 are again the aspects which are associated with the classical dances. If we talk about any dance, if we are saying that lasya aspect is more in this dance, it means this is very graceful dance. There is some type of ras which is involved in this type of the dance, that is about lasya and tandava aspect. This is kind of, we can say, the male dominant factor. This is, we can say, the female dominant factor, that is lasya, okay? So if we talk about this dance of Kathak, the first thing that you should know, the origination. This area which is, that is Lucknow, or we can say UP, or earlier it was known as Awadh, right? So Awadh or UP is the area where this dance form exists. Again, we can say the origin goes to the this Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement especially. This Kathak stands for Katha, that is a story. So in this dance format, there would be a dance which will tell you about a kind of ancient scripture type of the story would be there. Means this story narration would be there in form of the dance. So Katha means story. So and story narration would be there. Narration would be there in the format of dance, in form of dance, right? And this story would belong to basically ancient scriptures, right? So this is a kind of word where this Kathak was derived. Again, the area we have discussed, origin goes to the Bhakti movement of this 15th and 16th centuries. This was actually developed. This became a court dance under Mughals and their nobles, right? Under Mughals and their nobles. And from here onwards, this Kathak was actually origined, and this was evolved under this Mughals and their nobles, right? And especially you can see the patron of this dance. It was Wajid Ali Shah of Awadh, that you can remember. Wajid Ali Shah of Awadh, which actually patronized this Kathak dance. So this is about Kathak, and the most important or significant thing that you have to remember about the Kathak is this is the only dance form where Hindustani music or the classical North Indian music is associated with this dance format, right? So the only classical dance where classical North Indian music is there, right? This is the only dance you have to remember. All other have the South Indian music, but this is the only one where classical North Indian music is there. The next thing that you can remember is this dance is known for its intricate footwork, right? So the footwork is very intricate, and especially the aspect of this footwork is known as tatkar. So this is the feature of this dance, okay? So this is about Kathak dance. You have to remember some of the basic elements of this Kathak dance. It is performed in Awadh area, that is UP area. This is the only dance form which is associated with the North Indian music, that is a classical North Indian music. Again, this is known for its intricate footwork. The origin goes to the Bhakti movement, and this was also patronized by the Mughals and their nobles. Wajid Ali Shah was the main patron of this dance. You can remember that thing also. It is a classical dance. If we talk about the classical dances, so let me discuss this classical dances also here. If I draw a map, so there are Bharatanatyam, which is in Tamil Nadu. Then if we go to the Andhra Pradesh, that is Kuchipudi. Then if we talk about Odisha, then here it is Odissi. If we talk about Kerala, so don't confuse with this Kathak Kali, right? So Kathak Kali is in Kerala, and the second is very famous Mohini Attam, that is also in Kerala. So in Kerala there are two. Again, if we talk about this northeastern India, so here you will see Manipuri dance, and in Assam there is Satariya dance, right? And here we have seen in Awadh area, that is UP area, that is Kathak, right? So these are the 8 dance forms which are recognized as a classical dance, that is Bharatanatyam in Tamil Nadu, Kuchipudi in Andhra Pradesh, Odissi in Odisha, then Manipuri dance in Manipur, Satariya in Assam. In Manipur, you can remember martial art form is also performed under this dance, that is known as Thangta, okay? Then we have discussed about this Kathak. In this Kathak only we have discussed that Pandit Birju Maharaj was there of this Lucknow Gharana. So this was this man was associated by with this Kathak dance. Again we have seen this Kathakali and Mohiniyattam. They are the dances of Kerala especially. Okay. So if we talk about this area, that is Odisha, Jharkhand and West Bengal. Here a special dance form that is known as Chahu dance. Chahu dance is performed. Chahu means chaya, chaya means shadow. So there would be a kind of shadow, and they would be special dance formats in Odisha, Jharkhand and West Bengal. They are known for their specific features. So Chahu dance is recognized classical dance as far as Ministry of Culture is concerned. But as far as Sangeet Natak Academy is concerned, this is not the part of classical dances. So if I talk about Sangeet Natak Academy, so there are 8 classical dances, and this is not classical dance according to the Sangeet Natak Academy. Chahu is not the classical dance according to the Sangeet Natak Academy. But when we talk about Ministry of Culture, yes, this Chahu dance is also recognized under classical dance. So if we talk about Chahu dance, let me talk about this Chahu dance. The first thing that you should know, it was declared as UNESCO's intangible heritage of humanity. So this becomes important. Again, this is of 3 types. The first thing is Saraikalla, that is in Jharkhand. Then it is known as in Mayurbhanj of Odisha, and lastly that is Purulia of West Bengal. So these 3 forms are there of this Chahu dance only. Remember, in this Mayurbhanj there would be no mask while dancing. Right? No mask would be there. In case of this one, mask would be there. In case of Purulia also, mask would be there. So the catch is here, that is this Chahu is recognized by Ministry of Culture as a classical dance. Okay, but when we talk about Sangeet Natak Academy, it is not the part of classical dance. So there are basically 8 classical dances which we have seen on the map. So you can see once again Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi in Andhra Pradesh, Odissi, Manipuri, Satariya in Assam, Kathak we have discussed in UP, and again Kathakali and Mohiniyattam, they are in Kerala. Okay. Now the next topic which we are going to cover is, that is SAMARTH, that is Sustainable Agrarian Mission on Use of Agriculture Residue in Thermal Power Plants. Right? So this is the full form of this SAMARTH. This type of the full forms are new normal nowadays in this government especially. So this is the SAMARTH scheme, that is also known as you can remember, that is National Mission on Use of Biomass in Coal-based Thermal Power Plants. Okay, so this is also known as this National Mission on Use of Biomass in Coal-based Power Plants. So what was the aim of this mission? The aim was co-firing, means in case of thermal power plants, what we are using as a fuel, that is coal, right? And coal is known for the carbon emissions. So at one thing, you have to understand 2 things. At one aspect, we were trying to reduce carbon footprint. How we are trying to reduce that one? Means we are going to co-fire, means along with that coal we are going to combust this biomass also, right? So at one angle we are going to reduce carbon footprinting. The second thing, we are also going to handle the problem of this agricultural fires, right? That is stubble burning. So this hot issue of stubble burning was supposed to be solved with this national mission on use of biomass. If this biomass is purchased by the government or that can be used in the co-firing in thermal power plants, so in that way this agricultural residue or the stable burning can be tackled if these farmers are provided some amount of money in lieu of that biomass. Okay, so this co-firing would be there along with coal. It means what? It means biomass would also be there, right? And the target was this 5% is minimum biomass which is supposed to be burned with coal, right? This was the target of this national mission on biomass burning. The second thing is how to deal with the regulatory issues which comes in front of biomass burning in these plants. So to tackle those regulatory issues. And the third aspect was R&D, that is research and development activity in boilers designs in thermal power plants so that their efficiency can also be increased. The fourth angle that you can understand, that is transportation to be made very easier one, means so that biomass can be transported in a very easy way to these thermal power plants. Okay, so this is one thing. Next, if we talk about, because this is going to be very technical in nature, the only thing that you need to know is what is SAMARTH initiative. Under that SAMARTH initiatives, we have tried to co-fire, that is, you have to remember this biomass along with this coal, and the minimum that requirement was set, that is 5% of this biomass supposed to be there, although we are trying to enhance that to up to the 10% limit nowadays. So this is about SAMARTH initiative. For as far as your prelims is concerned, you should know this SAMARTH initiative, and in case of your mains, you can utilize this information, what governments are trying to reduce the pollution levels in the NCR areas and how we are going to tackle this agricultural related stable burning. So you can give the example of this SAMARTH initiative which has been launched for this type of the problems. Okay, so this is about SAMARTH initiative. Now if we talk about the next important aspect that you should know, that is about the volcanic activity which recently happened in the Tonga area. Let me show you that on the map. So this is the map. Now you can see here that is the area which was erupted nowadays. Under sea type of the volcanic activities had happened in this area. This area is known as Pacific Ring of Fire. In this Pacific Ocean, you can see this one, and that is highlighted in red color because you can see these are the volcanic activities, and this area is earthquake prone area. For that, you need to understand why this area is subject to these frequent volcanic activities and this earthquake and all, because this is the area where various plates, tectonic plates are colliding, right, or departing away. So in order to understand that thing, let me discuss that thing also here. So what you should know, you should know on the map where this Tonga location is there. You can see this is here somewhere near over the New Zealand area, and this area of Indonesia was frequently in news, and some of the important volcanic activities were here also. So let me show you that on map so that you would be aware of this volcanic activities in here. The first thing that you should notice is this Sinabang volcano, that is in Sumatra part of the Indonesia, that you have to remember. Then this Mount Krakatau, this is again very important. This remains in news many a times. Then Mount Merapi, then this Sumeru, and this Agang, right? Then Rinjani. So these were frequently in news, that is Sinabang, Krakatoa, Merapi, Sumeru, right? Agang. So you should be very familiar with this one, and this is nothing but the same area of Pacific Ocean, right? Means the plate collision is there, plate diversion is there. So if I talk about this volcanic activities, let me relate this with your static subject also. So in terms of this volcanic activities, why this volcanic activities are there, and if I ask you a question, for example, there are Himalayas mountain also there. Why there is no volcano in Himalaya if volcanic activities are the part of this collision or diversion of plate boundaries, right? So in case of Himalayas formation also, we can see there is collision between Eurasian plate and Indo plate. Then why there is no volcanic activity in Himalayan region? For that you have to understand this basic, very basic. If I talk about the plate movement, so here you have to understand there are three type of the plate movement, that is convergence. Convergence mean the force would be in this way, right? Two plates will collide against each other. The second would be divergence, right? This would be destructive in nature. This would be constructive in nature. I'll tell you what is this destructive. And the third would be transform. This is divergence, then transform. Means the plate will pass by each other in this way. One plate will move this way, this side again. In this case, this would be the direction of the plate movement. In this case, direction of the plate movement would be in this way. So I am interested here with this convergence. Convergence is known as destructive plate boundaries, means destruction of crust area would be there, destruction of the plate would occur in this area. Now if we talk about this convergence, I am interested in this convergence. So the first thing about this convergence that you should know, there could be different type of the plates. That could be continental plate and there could be oceanic plate. Oceanic plate means the most of the formation of this oceanic plate would be of basaltic in nature. I'll tell you that also, and here it would be granitic. Okay, so if we talk about convergence, there could be continental conversion, there could be continental oceanic conversion, there could be oceanic plate conversion as well. Okay, so these three type of the convergence could be there. Now if we talk about continental ocean, that is the most common type of the conversion. Before discussing that, let me discuss here what are these two plates, that is granitic plate, that is continental plate, and again the second one is oceanic plate. Okay, so there are two plates. Here you will find most of the granite would be there. In this case there would be basalt. The density would be lesser in this case, but here the density would be very high. The thickness would be higher here, thickness would be somewhat lesser here, right? The most important thing that you need to learn here is these granitic rocks are not easily broken. Means even if you are applying tremendous amount of the force, this granitic rock is going to fold, but it won't easily break. But in case of this basalt, this is easily breakable, right? Easily breakable. This is not breakable. Why I am telling you all these aspects? In order to answer this question, that is Himalaya volcanic activities, why volcanic activities are not there in Himalayan region. Okay, so now if we talk about CO collision, right? For example, there is continental plate, this is continental plate, and for example this is oceanic plate. Okay, so if we say this is the force direction, and this force is nothing but your convectional force, which is because of the radioactive decay in earth, that we'll discuss in some other way in other lecture. So if these two are going to collide, definitely the heavy plate will subduct under the lighter one, and this is going to be the lighter one, that is continental plate. So obviously this oceanic plate is going to subduct under this area, right? And here in the beneath of this area there would be very high temperature, and the convection, radioactive convection decay is going on here. So what would happen? This rock is going to melt down in this area, right? So in this area, this molten rock would be there. You have to understand that thing, right? And this area is known as Beni of John. Beni of John. Right, so this area is known as Beni of John. So the basic thing is the force would be applied, this heavy plate would subduct under the lighter one, and when it reaches to the depth, in this depth the temperature and pressure are favorable, and this would be converted into the molten state. Remember here, if there is water body, because this is oceanic collision, so there would be water type of the particles would be here, water type of the bodies would be here. If there is water content available here, this water will also come with this subducting rock. Because of this water, because of the temperature, this water would be evaporated Okay, this water would be evaporated and this will find some way anyhow, and this will reach to the earth's surface, and following the same route, this molten rock, that is nothing but your magma, can also reach to the surface of this plate, right? So this magma can also travel, and here you will see some type of the volcanic activity. Volcanic activity means what? Volcanic activity means these rock are coming in melt form, in the melting form, these magma is coming out on the surface, and then it is known as lava, right? So this type of the activity would definitely be there if this is the continental oceanic collision. The second thing that you need to understand is that is if we talk about this collision, the crust would be folded, because this collision would be there, and this continental plate is made up of granite. So remember, this force will not destruct that much to this continental plate, but this plate will be folded like this, right? So the folding would be there, means the fold mountains can be made here, right? So fold mountains would be here, that is for sure. There could be volcanic activities, and definitely if they are going to collide with each other, earthquake would be there. Earthquake means what? Nothing but the shaking of earth. So earthquake would also be there in this area. I hope this is clear for you, right? So volcanic activity would be there, fold mountains would be there, and earthquake would also be there. Okay, so this is continental oceanic collision. Now if we talk about continental collision, that is nothing but your Himalayan and Himalayan formation. So if I talk about this collision, that is continental plate, that I can say nothing but your Eurasian plate, right? And here it is the Indian plate, right? Indo-Austrian plate, that is also a continental plate. Now they both are lighter in nature. Now if there is somewhat difference, means if some plate is somewhat heavier, then it will definitely subduct under the other one. For example, here this is the Indian plate which is subducting under the Eurasian plate. Okay, so what is happening here? You have seen there is mountain formation, that is nothing but your Himalayas. Why this is formation is there? Because you know this is continental folding, and this crust is of granitic nature, and this granitic, when it is subject to the compression, this is nothing going to be broken into the pieces, but it will be folded in nature, and this folded mountains are known as your Himalayas. Okay, these are your Himalayas. So the second question is whether there is going to be the earthquake or not. The answer would be yes, because if there is collision, definitely there would be the shaking of the earth. And remember, Himalaya is your active region in terms of volcanic activities. Okay, the third question that you have to understand, that becomes very important, because this subduction is going on here, these two plates are going to be collided with each other, and here you will see there would be molten magma, but as there was no water body in between these two plates, no water content was there, the water particles won't be there, and this magma would not be able to find its way. Earlier in this collision, you can remember here, the water content was getting vaporized, and this vaporized water was finding its way, and this way was also followed by the magma. But now this water is not there, the creation of path would not be there by the water vapor, right? And this magma cannot come out on the surface because of two reasons. The first reason is water vapor is not there. The second reason is there would be intense folding, that would be the crust of this plate also, the crust of this plate also. They are going to create the doubling of crust mechanism, means this crust would be doubled in nature. Now this magma has to travel that much of the depth, right, that much of the distance, and it would be kind of impossible things for this volcanic for this magma, okay, to travel that without the help of water vapor. Now the question is, in case of this collision, would there be any activity which is volcanic in nature? The answer would be no. Okay, so that is the reason Himalayas has no volcanic activity. Okay, because of two reasons I have told you, that is no water body was there. The second thing is doubling of crust. Okay, so because of these two reasons, volcanic activity is absent in case of Himalayas formation. The same way you can see the example when there is continental collision, but there is water body in between them. Means, for example, I can say here, if it would be a water body here, then it would definitely have created a way for this magma, as we have seen earlier. And this is the example where you can see, let me tell you about this example. This is the Eurasian plate, and here you can see this is the African plate. Okay, so African plate is again continental, Eurasian plate is again continental, and they are also colliding, but there is a body of water that is known as Mediterranean Sea. Okay, Mediterranean Sea is there, and because of that water body, this magma can come out on the surface. And we see the examples of Italy. In case of Italy, you can see the Stromboli mountains are there, Etna mountain is there. So these are the volcanic mountains. The volcanic activities are there even in cases of continental collision. In case of this Italy, why? Because there was a water body between these two plates. I hope this concept would be clear now for you. Okay, so this is about this volcanic activities. Now we have seen this type of the collision and diversion. In case of diversion, simply you can understand the forces would be opposite in nature. In this way, this would be the plate movement, and now this magma will come out and the creation of crust would be there, right? And therefore this is known as constructive boundaries. Right? Here you will see destruction would be there because this rock is going to be subducted, right? So destruction would be there. Here you will see some of trenches would be there, right? Where the area and where these rocks are going to be subducted. Okay, so this is known as destructive boundaries. So this was about this area. I hope now this would be clear to you. You can see once again, this is the Pacific Ring of Fire, and why this is active in terms of volcanoes, in terms of earthquakes, because there are n number of the plates which are colliding here, which are diverging apart from here, and that is the reason why this area is very much active. Okay, so this is again a separate thing, right? Now, if we are talking about the Indonesia, there was also one news associated with this Indonesia only, and that is the shifting of the capital, which was earlier the capital of this Indonesia was Jakarta. Now this is Nusantara. Nusantara is something which is situated here on the island of this Borneo. Why this Indonesia has shifted its capital? Because of the vagaries of the climate you can say. In 2050, it was expected this Jakarta is going to be submerged under the sea water, right? Means water level is increasing at an alarming rate. Now this city of Jakarta has been evacuated by this Indonesia to prevent such type of the disaster in future. So here you can take the example in case of environmental related aspects. You can write in your answer writing the example of this Indonesia and how this sea level rise is going to impact various countries, especially those are situated in the tropical regions. So you can cite this example of Indonesia, and here you can also relate why this 1.5 degrees C temperature limit is very much mandatory under Paris Agreement. We need to prevent this 1.5 degrees C temperature rise if we want to prevent such type of the submergence in near future. Okay, so this is the news which was related to the Indonesia only. So I hope this volcanic activity, the process of volcanism, and this map would have been clear now to you. Okay, coming back to the discussion, normal discussion which we are having, let me discuss another topics. The next topic is important for your prelims. Now the topic is PASSEX exercise. PASSEX exercise, right? So this was recently held between Russia and India. With this Russia and India, you could remember some other exercises also. Remember this PASSEX exercise was also done between US and India. Okay, this is nothing but your international PASSEX exercise. Okay, so recently we did this with Russia, earlier with US also. This was between India and Russia recently, and between India and Russia you can remember this is Indra. Indra is the exercise. Again you can remember that is JAPED exercise, and one more you can remember that is TSENTR exercise. So these two are multinational exercises where India also participated. They are organized by the Russia, and this is between India and Russia. Okay, so remember these one. The next important thing that you should know is Oxfam report. Oxfam report, and that report was named as Inequality Kills. Okay, inequality kills. So Oxfam is known for its reports, especially on inequality, where you will find some of the basic insights for the mains answer writing. As far as mains is concerned, this report is important, especially in your social issues. You can cite some of the key findings of this report. So let me discuss here. According to this Oxfam report, income divide is ever increasing after pandemic. Income division is again divide is increasing, and especially during the pandemic. During this pandemic, we are seeing this income divide. Here some of the key areas under this inequality you can see here. The first thing this report talks about, that is the top 10 richest person have doubled their income during this pandemic only, right? So this is a very you can say this divide is ever increasing because of this pandemic. Many of people have lost their job, but at the other hand, these top 10 richest people have increased their wealth by double, right? So the first finding is top 10 richest have doubled their income. So that is not the one that you are going to cite in your answer writing. That you can cite. 99% of the population or the humanity is affected because of COVID-19, and this is a very startling finding. That is every 4 second there is one death because of this inequality, right? So there is a death of one person in every 4 seconds according to this report. This report also highlighted there is kind of economic violences nowadays in our society. We are facing this economic violences. There is inaccessible health facilities for many, inaccessible health infrastructure, we can say, for many, right? There is poverty induced hunger is also there, and also this talks about the vaccine apartheid, especially when we talk about the WTO. We had discussed this WTO earlier in our second lecture. We have seen in case of WTO, many of the countries were demanding for a temporary waiver on vaccines, right? Because they are secured a kind of temporary permanence is given to the companies of the vaccines, and now this temporary monopoly was supposed to be diluted under this temporary waiver in the sake of saving the humanity. So many countries demanded that IPR regime should be diluted, but these were the developed countries. This was the WTO where the consensus was not built upon, and we have seen some of the very poor countries were not having the access to this vaccine, and this pandemic was in this pandemic these countries were especially crippling with their health infrastructure. Although India was the one who supported many of the countries under its vaccine Maitri program, we'll see that thing also. We are going to highlight that one, but still there was a vaccine apathy as far as developed countries are concerned, right? This when we talk about India's perspective, what this Oxfam's report talks about India. So in case of India, it talks about that social expenditure is declining in India, and that is something which is worrisome trend. Means if you want to recover from this type of the pandemic, you need to invest in your social infrastructure, especially for example health type of the infrastructure. You have to increase the budget allocation for the social schemes as well, so that the people can tackle this pandemic situation with the help of these schemes. So this is a worrisome trend. We are reducing our social expenditure. Health care budget was also reduced. That should have been increased seeing the pandemic, but it was also reduced by 10% when it comes to the revised estimate. Again, we have seen education expenditure was further reduced by the government, and that is something which is concerning in nature. Then if we talk about the billionaires, so in case of India is the third country after China and US in terms of billionaires, China and USA, right? So we have increased 39% these billionaires. That is no need to remember this data, you can remember this one. We have the we are at the third position when it comes to the number of billionaires, and this is something that you can cite in your answers. That is inequality in India, that is bottom 50% of the people constitutes only 6% of our nation's wealth. And this is something which is very significant aspect when it comes to the inequality. Means bottom 50% is having only contribution of 6% of national wealth. Okay, so this is the inequality. And also with this inequality, this report talks about the unemployment is ever increasing in India also. So this is the key finding of this report. You can always cite this report in terms of social schemes, in terms of your answer writing in society, in terms of the schemes, in terms of the poverty alleviation, right? So this type of the report can always be cited in your mains examination. As far as prelims is concerned, you need to remember what is the name of this report, that is Inequality Kills. It was released by this organization, that is Oxfam International. Okay, now if we talk about this report that talked about social inequality, the social problems which are especially we are facing after the pandemic. The same way we have discussed other report, that is global risk report, and that was released by the World Economic Forum. We have discussed in our lecture 2. That report also highlighted the same thing. According to that report, this global risk report was accessing the risks which are there globally, which are prevalent in our recent period. And this was the climate change, which was at the first position. After that, it also talked about that the social cohesion is eroding because of this pandemic. Many of the people have lost their jobs because of this pandemic. So that you can also use in your answer writing. So we have discussed that one. Remember this global risk report. We also discussed some of the important reports of WEF. For example, we discussed about global competitiveness report, global IT report, global gender inequality report, right? Gender gap reports. This type of the reports were released by the WEF. So WEF also talked about this climate change, and with this climate change, they talked about social cohesion erosion and livelihood loss, right? So this report also highlighted how this pandemic has eroded social cohesion. So you can remember that thing also. And along with that, I would like to discuss here only, that is World Employment and Social Outlook. World Employment and Social Outlook, that is WESO, and this is released by International Labour Organization, that is ILO. So we'll discuss about ILO. ILO came into being in 1919 after the Treaty of Versailles. After the First World War, this was the aim that the global peace should be there, universal and lasting peace should be there. And in this process, many institutions were formed, and ILO was one of them. It got a special agency tag in 1946, that is UN's specialized organ now it is. right? So this is a kind of tri-party organization where governments are there, where employers are there, and where employees are also the part of this organization, right? So there are total 187 members, and India was the founding member. You have to remember that thing. Along with that, India also chaired its governing council meet in 2020. Okay, so this is a tri-party organization. You have to remember, governments are there, employers are there, employees are there. Now what this organization do? This organization actually formulates a public opinion which is very much necessary for the employees, and then it kind of pressure would be there on the employer and on the governments to adopt these special conventions. For example, if we talk about the production, or if we talk about the industries, if I say there would be a convention of ILO that talks about that minimum age should be 18 years for a labor to be there in the production or in the company, right? Means child labor should not be allowed. So this is a provision that is going to be adopted by the countries with the help of this pressure techniques adopted by ILO. Okay, so this is about ILO. Now what this WESO report talks about. This WESO report again highlighted that unemployment is increasing only. After 2019, we are seeing now there are 207 million unemployed people, and when we talk about 2019, there were 186 million people, those who were unemployed, right? Means unemployment rate is increasing. This is one thing. The second thing is this report again highlighted that inequality is also increasing, and this will take years to repair, right? Means this is something which we can say irreparable loss is there because of this pandemic situation, and this inequality is rising. You can see according to this report also, according to global risk report also, according to the Oxfam's inequality kills also, right? So you can cite these three reports. Their data can also be used in your mains exam. Okay, now this report also talked about labor participation, and in terms of labor participation, this report says there were 40 million people which do not participate, which are not going to participate in 2022, right? Minimum 40 million people will not be participating, and that is the labor participation rate. So this is about WESO report. Now if we talk about the next important key area for your prelims, that is eastern swamp deer. The first thing is why it was in news. Why in news? Because in Kaziranga National Park, their population was declining, right? And this was why it was in news. So we have discussed in our second lecture also, there are some national parks. There were total 7 national parks in Assam, and we discussed about Orang National Park. And remember, although in this Kaziranga National Park this population was declining, but now they have found a new habitat in terms of Orang National Park in Assam, right? So this is a kind of good news for us. Now after this Kaziranga Park, they are now shifting towards this Orang National Park. Okay, so Orang National Park was also in news. You have to remember that thing. As far as this swamp deer is considered, there are 3 types of the swamp deers. There are 3 subspecies: the north subspecies, then central or southern Indian species, and then it is eastern swamp deer species. Northern are generally found in Nepal, then central in central India and South India, and eastern in Kaziranga National Park. And now we have discussed about this Orang National Park. Okay, in case of UP also they are found, and this is Dudhwa National Park where this eastern swamp deer is found, right? So there are 3 subspecies. You can remember that one. Now if we talk about its status, IUCN status. So IUCN came up with the classification in 1966 where it divides these categories of species in critically endangered, then endangered, then your vulnerable, and then we can say that is near threatened and least concern, right? And after this critically endangered, there is extinction, right? So we should worry if some species is there in vulnerable, endangered or critical endangered. So this species of swamp deer lies here in vulnerable list. If we talk about their classification, so what is the rule that is the normal rule for classification? If we talk about critically endangered criteria, the 90% of their population should have been vanished in last 10 years, right? So this is the past. If we talk about the past, their population, 90% of their population should have been perished in last 10 years. If we talk about endangered, there should be 70% population in last 10 years. And if we talk about vulnerable, then 50% of their population have been perished in last 10 years. This is the past status. If we talk about the present status, that is maximum 50 individuals are left. That is mature individuals are left when we talk about critical endangered. If we talk about this one, 250 individuals are there. If we talk this one, then 10,000 individuals are left. If some species is here that is in near threatened, it means now this species is in need of conservation, because now again this is going to fall in this category, that is vulnerable, then endangered, and then critically endangered. And if it is not conserved, then extinction in wild, and then permanently extinct. Okay, now if we have talked about this past criteria, this was the present status, and if we are going to talk about the future, so this classification talks about the future also. If the population in 50% of their population is supposed to decline or is going to decline in next 10 years, this is the future prediction for critical endangered, right? For critically endangered species. For endangered, that is going to be 20% of their population which is remained is going to be declined in next 20 years, right? And for in case of vulnerable, 10% of their population is to be declined in next 100 years. Okay, so this is the criteria that you can remember as far as your prelims is concerned. This becomes important. Remember, this swamp deer species is in vulnerable list. So this was IUCN's classification, right? So we have seen IUCN. In terms of IUCN, this comes under vulnerable. Now if we talk about the second important indicator, that is CITES. Under CITES convention, CITES convention is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, right? So this trade is regulated, even prohibited under CITES, and Appendix 1st, 2nd and 3 are there. So this species falls under Appendix 1st. It means the protection has been provided, and that is the highest protection under CITES given to this species of swamp deer. If we talk about Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, so here we have discussed there are total 6 schedules are here, 1 to 6. If we talk about schedule 1, 2, 3 and 4, so degree of protection would be very high if some species is mentioned under schedule 1. So it would be a kind of absolute protection. Means if you are indulged in trading activities or trading in parts with this species, or hunting with this hunting in this species, so there would be a kind of imprisonment would be there, and it comes under non-bailable offense also. So this is absolute protection would be provided. In case of this one also, the degree of protection would be somewhat lesser compared to the schedule 1, but again there would be the highest degree of protection would be somewhat higher one. Here the degree of protection will be lesser. Again this would be lesser in nature. So if some species is mentioned in schedule 1 and 2, it means kind of protection which is being provided to them is very high, right? So this species is mentioned in schedule 1 of WPA Act, that you can remember, right? So this is about swamp deer. And again you can remember the 7 national parks are there in Assam, and 2 of them were recently declared in 2021. The one was Raimona National Park, this was the 6th one, and the other one was Dihing Patkai National Park. So these were formed in 2021 only. So there are total 7 national parks in Assam. Okay, so this was about eastern swamp deer. Now we come to the next topic of our discussion, and that is National Commission on for Safai Karamcharis. NCSK. So remember, this was in news because the tenure of this commission has been extended for a period of 3 years, right, recently. So you can remember that came into existence in 1993, right, with the help of this NCSK Act of 1993, that is National Commission for Safai Karamchari Act of 1993. Now what you have to remember is this was provided extended terms again and again, but this act ceases to exist in 2004. Okay, so after 2004 this commission has lost its statutory backing, means now this is not a statutory body. So if we are going to extend its tenure, extending its tenure, that is nothing going to be happen in terms of statutes. It is going to be done with the help of executive action. Okay, so this is no more kind of a statutory body. This is the catch you have to remember, especially after 2004 it has lost its status of statutory body. Okay, so now why it is important? So as far as manual scavengers are concerned, as far as Safai Karamcharis are concerned, there are n number of schemes which are there for them. So in order to monitor those schemes, in order to advise the government on these matters especially, and there is a separate act, that is Employment of Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act of 2013. So this act aims to protect manual scavengers, and the practices of manual scavenging are prohibitory in nature under this act. So this act is being implemented nothing but by this body only, that is National Commission for Safai Karamcharis, right? So if we want to the welfare of these manual scavengers, or if we want to prohibit this exercise of manual scavenging, this body is something which is important one, and that is also the implementing agency for this act. Okay, so this was today's class, and remember this commission can be important for your prelims only. Okay, so this was the prelims special section which we have discussed right now. So this was all about today's discussion. I hope there would be some better understanding on these topics. In future, we will discuss some of the very important aspects of our January current affairs. In a separate lecture, I would discuss about the Indian State of Forest report, which recently had been released. Along with that, we will also discuss many other important initiatives which are also the part of this Indian State Forest report. We'll discuss separate terms also, whatever the terms which have been used by this report, various indicators and all. For that, we'll make a separate video. Thank you very much for watching this class. Have a good day.